Good evening. My name is Lloyd. I'm a physician here in Columbia, South Carolina. I've just been through a very traumatic event. I was piloting my plane between South Carolina and Maryland, and a series of mechanical failures, and I was forced to put the plane down. Often that becomes a fatal event. I had a colleague with me and his 2 children, and fortunately everybody was able to walk away. To me, this is a sentinel event. This is something that's telling me there's more to life. There's some reason God has me on this earth. This is not the first time that question's come up for me. I've had a lot of life-altering events that go back to when I was 11 years old and my mother took her own life due to some very sad circumstances. I've had the misfortune of bearing 4 newborn children that did not survive, including a set of identical twins. I've had multiple failed marriages, the fact of which I'm not very proud. I was fortunate enough to get a doctorate in computer science from Duke University in the mid-1970s and thought that I was on a meteoric career to have a .com company that was going to revolutionize healthcare by incorporating the capabilities of computers to assist doctors in making the appropriate, predictable, safe decisions about how to manage diseases. When that fell apart, I was floating, lost, and serendipitously ended up in changing my career around the year 2000 to focus just on colon cancer prevention through colonoscopy. I developed a different technique of performing the test that turns out is much easier to learn and dramatically improves the safety, reduces the cost, but improves the quality to 3 to 10 times what the typical gastroenterologist is able to serve their patients with. We were able to reduce the risk of getting colon cancer by 83% and the risk of dying by 89%. And this was in a continual survey of 25,000 colonoscopies over a period of more than a decade, done by 53 different physicians that I had taught and myself. And so I thought that I was getting ready to hit critical mass. I've always had an urge to learn, to do things differently, to innovate. And when this new way of doing colonoscopies came about, at first the conventional wisdom, justifiably so, was to be suspicious of less trained physicians performing a life and death type of screening procedure. One would normally think that these primary care physicians that are being taught how to do a colonoscopy might not perform as well as the specialists that went through 3 years of training and performed the test almost every day. And so when the analysis was performed with a grant from the National Cancer Institute that found that we had actually achieved the highest colon cancer protection rate ever achieved in the world, I said, wow. When they did the statistics to see just how much difference our technique was, it was very straightforward. If you use the goal of the American Cancer Society, which is to get 80% of the population screened, and they were screened by a test of our quality, of our protective benefit, then it would save 32,000 lives every year and eliminate 100,000 cases of colon cancer a year. When you think that the average case of colon cancer costs more than $250,000, this is a huge savings to the healthcare delivery system. But just when I started to feel empowered and almost invincible, the opposition coalesced, and it was sort of like I had poked the 800-pound gorilla, and all of a sudden they were after me in a series of catastrophes that just virtually destroyed my health, my relationship with my wife, my business, and my practice. About a year ago, things came crumbling down. And so I find myself at a crossroads. My first response to all of the vitriolic, all of the opposition to my model, was to fight back. I've always been a tenacious fighter and scrappy person, and so I felt like I had the data, I was right, I had something innovative that could save thousands and thousands of lives, that once people saw the data, which is irrefutable, that eventually I would be vindicated. So I wrote a book about the whole process and the experiences I've had and the attacks on me personally and from a financial standpoint in my business. And I realized all I was doing was writing a diatribe. I was just embodying all my anger and frustrations, trying to get them out by writing this book. But nobody was going to care. Nobody was really going to read it. It didn't really get at the important question. The important question is very simple. I'm at a crossroads. When you recognize that you've been given a gift, that God's entrusted you with a mechanism to save over 30,000 lives a year, what are you supposed to do? I tried to do it the way I knew, to teach at no cost as many doctors as I could this new technique, to try to have head-to-head comparisons with the existing techniques for performing the test. I've worked with an esteemed gastroenterologist from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I've done everything I can to verify the benefits of this technique and to spread the word as far as I could. But the opposition is so tenacious, they're so powerful, they're so well funded, and it's been miserable. Well, the book that I'd written, that was a diatribe, I realized that's just not going to do it. And so my life changed, and I met someone special, and we decided to talk to a medium, to talk to somebody about some of these issues, and it was eye-opening. It was life-changing. They could see through whatever connection they have with the cosmos many of the aspects of what I'd written, and realized the only way to get the message out to the general public is to be able to use social media, to use various different indirect ways of getting out the message. You have to establish credibility first. And so what she suggested doing was to instead write a novel that incorporates many of the facts and many of the issues that were included in this diatribe I'd written, but to actually try to make it part fiction, part nonfiction, but to soft pedal the acrimony that I have towards my competitive colleagues about quality and colonoscopy, and use that as a small part of the story. And so I began trying to find a mechanism, and Pam and I together came up with a series of fairly rapid evolutionary changes to our concept. And the first thing we said was, well, let's look at different people that have faced stiff opposition to their concepts. And the names that came up were quite easy to come by, people that everybody will know. One was Jonas Salk in eliminating the scourge of polio in mid-20th century. The other was a Dr. Barry Marshall from Western Australia, who was able to determine that peptic ulcer disease was not caused by too much acid and stress. It was in fact caused by a germ. It was caused by an infection. He too faced incredible opposition for over a decade. The next person that became just a hero to me was Dr. Freireich. Dr. Freireich was a physician fresh out of his internal medicine training in Boston, right after World War II, when he was facing the doctor's draft. He was identified as a leader, as a great thinker, and rather than send him over to Korea or wherever to learn to shoot a rifle and fight for our country, one of his professors decided to see if he couldn't be a member of the new uniformed public health service at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And so he was given an opportunity, along with a number of other very creative, forward-thinking, bright people with a large amount of resource available to them, a high budget, and without any pre-existing infrastructure to determine how things were going to be done. So to him, this was the ideal environment. He had lots of young people, had free access to a lot of research. Patients weren't charged for their stay at the Bethesda Medical Center, so they didn't have the billing and financial requirements They didn't have to do a lot of teaching. Basically, it was just a research environment. And Dr. Freireich, in the span of less than a decade, was able to cure acute lymphoblastic leukemia, acute childhood leukemia, and the story of the obstacles that he faced and the incredible opposition and the lack of support from his colleagues. It just felt like me over and over again. I just said, wow, this strong and dedicated and would never take no for an answer kind of person was able to persevere. Every time he thought he made a major step forward, there'd be another major obstacle, but it didn't bother him at all. He said, it's just the next obstacle. And he kept going until now 80% of children with acute lymphoblastic leukemia are cured. And he achieved more than half of that response in the 10 years he was there between the mid-1950s and the early 1960s. So, and the one individual that I want to mention is Dr. Tom, a physician who, in the face of almost losing his second and precious child, he made a commitment to God that he was going to become a medical missionary, that he was going to go somewhere, wherever God called him, and try to convince a population of people that may never have been exposed to Christianity to the true meaning of being a Christian. And he too faced incredible opposition. He knew what he wanted to do, and he went and did it. But the infrastructure and the politics and the bureaucracy of the medical missions field kept slapping him in the face. And so when we take these other four situations, the medical missionary, Dr. Freireich with childhood leukemia, Dr. Salk with trying to find a vaccination to stamp out polio, and Dr. Barry Marshall in finding that peptic ulcer disease was caused by a germ, there were so many parallels. And so Pam and I said, well, what is a structure that we could use to compare and contrast these stories and to bring my own trials and tribulations into the fray? And we've decided the 12 stations of the cross. If we look at the passion of Jesus, there are so many similarities where you can see, from being given the death sentence to being told to carry your own cross to your crucifixion, to having his falls, to having his mother there to help, to have someone else be selected possibly at random from the crowd to help him carry the cross, to being stripped of his clothes. The 12 stations just each had a very focused part of the story of the trials and tribulations that were useful to me in trying to compare these 5 stories. And so I now have converted the diatribe to a novel that is 3/4 factual, and the last fourth I turn into an opportunity to say, well, if these people could help today and solve the situation that I'm faced with, given this wonderful gift of a way to save 32,000 lives, and being incapable of getting America to recognize it for what it is, and to find the tenacious opposition so well funded and so organized and so successful at trying to be sure that the public never sees the benefits of this invention, of this discovery, of this gradual evolution of a new way to do colonoscopies. I think that this has been an excellent spiritual growth opportunity. Along with, in the last year, I've spent a lot of time with Dr. Ward and Dr. Martin and Dr. Steward. They've all tried to help me find my inner self, to find my spirit, to find my ego, to find out why did I get so passionate about colon cancer that I allowed it to destroy my life, to destroy my interpersonal relationships. So I had to make a decision, and what I found was that not only improved my commitment to writing this book, but it became the basis of it. I realized that I had a lot of things backwards, that my spirit, my my inner self, my soul. I had been suppressing for a long time. I did not really know who I was. I did not know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I just wasn't secure. I loved life. I loved helping people. I loved doing things. I felt good about myself. I wasn't a bad person, but I really didn't know myself. And I'd hurt a lot of people indirectly as a part of my passion and commitment to trying to achieve this wonderful goal of saving 32,000 lives. And so here I am at this crossroad that I've had this horrible plane accident. I survived miraculously. You can tell I have a few injuries from it. It was 2 weeks ago today. And I just want to ask for your help. I want to ask for your support to say, all of this is for a reason. That I didn't end up on this earth as a statistical event, that it had no basis, no meaning. And I was given this gift of evolving this new technique of performing colonoscopies that is so life-saving for a reason. And I've had to carry that cross, and now I have a way to try to express it. And I hope that I've put these words together in a way that, instead of, as my detractors would have, saying, Dr. Lloyd, you're done. We've destroyed your business. We've destroyed your career. You've lost your medical license. You're out of here. Instead, I'd like to say, this is a crossroad. This is a turning point. I'm going to learn enough about myself, enough about society, enough about medical science, enough about business to be able to get this concept successfully out to the masses. There's a reason it was given to me. There's a reason that I survived this plane accident. And the reason is I have a gift. I've been given a cross to bear, and I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that responsibility and find, through the help of God, through the help of the people around me, with the help of medical science, with the help of my doctors, we're going to win. We're going to win. But I definitely need your help. And so I hope this series of YouTube channel, almost like the TED Talks, I have a whole series of them that summarize the content of the book, that I hope will enlighten, hope will entertain, hope will empower people to do something. 100,000 unnecessary cases of colon cancer every year is a massive amount of carnage that's unnecessary and can be stopped. And that's the way I'm going to judge my success, is to see how quickly we can go. Right now we're at 150,000 cases of colon cancer a year. It's been like that for several years, pretty steady. I want to see that drop precipitously. I know we can drop it 15-20% a year if we can just get people to understand that the way colonoscopy is performed is crucial, that there are newer techniques that will help identify more polyps. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that from the time a polyp forms until it turns into cancer, it takes an average of 10 years. There's never been a case of in less than 5 years. And so if you see somebody that got colon cancer, they've had something wrong inside their body for a long time. And if we're able to inspect the walls of the colon more effectively and find the polyps when they're teeny, when they're small, and destroy them, then virtually no one should get colon cancer. We should be able to reduce the cases load by, as in our experience of our first 25,000 cases, it was 83% reduction. This would save 100,000 cases of colon cancer. That is my goal, and I need your help. Thank you.